office from the EMS lieutenant from Flint Hill. The letter's dated August the 4th, but the one thing I want to make clear to the committee is that this was received in my office the 15th of August, like 3:32 p.m. in the afternoon. And I did not receive it from who the letter's from. I received it from other sources. So the gentleman on here I have not spoken to. I have received a couple other letters the same way, reference to some issues at Flint Hill from the same gentleman. But
Have you made any contact with the person who's...
No, sir. None of the letters I received had any.
None of the letters were signed and you haven't talked to the person?
No contact information on there. Just this last letter I had that came in on the 15th included a email. So basically I received this on August the 15th. It's a letter talking about some public safety concerns. It was addressed to me. I'll just read it out. You want me to read it out, Christine?
That would be great.
Okay.
I'm very leery of ascribing these words to a person who didn't sign the letter and Kevin has not talked to. So I don't know what the situation is. I haven't read it, but do we know if this person wrote the letter?
I believe I can say with reasonable assurance that the individual wrote the letter. Or if you want to kind of just sum it up, Kevin,
Okay.
about what the concerns are, and
Well,
what
I
you
can
think is,
sum it up.
without, maybe attributing personalities, and what you think is an appropriate path forward.
Okay. I'll sum it up and I'll let you know what I've done since I received it, just to kind of get some feedback on this, because there was a couple of things here. And there's quite a few people present here that may want to discuss it as well, if you want to know. So basically, the letter I received talked about the incident at Flint Hill Fire Department, Flint Hill Volunteer Fire and Rescue Department on May 22nd, 2018, concerning a gentleman that came down, and supposedly there were some arguments that took place. This letter is basically, and y'all got to excuse me, I'm going through trying to pick out some pieces here. Basically, they were writing to raise my disappointment at the lack of response to the safety and well-being of the first responders and surrounding community of Flint Hill. Incident occurred over 2 months ago, May the 22nd, 2018. No further action has been taken by certain individuals. For background, a member of Chester Fire Department came to the firehouse and proceeded to verbally combative to and start altercations with another firefighter. This individual supposedly reached for a handgun from the glove compartment of his vehicle, brandished it. The fire lieutenant at Flint Hill contacted the sheriff's office immediately. Other individuals arrived at the station. Basically, the sheriff's office was called. The 5 first responders are there, advised that basically the letter says he was not going to deal with the situation any further, turned and walked away. As of August the 4th, 2018, no one has contacted the sheriff's office to obtain barring orders on this certain individual. So that was the one incident that was described in this letter. When I did receive this, I have looked at some certain things. One thing I do want to point out, and I want to be clear as far as in my position, this made it to RAPNet the very next morning after I received it. I was told by a citizen that called in and told me that it was on there. The letter is dated August the 4th. Again, it was received in my office on August the 15th. So I did start kind of looking into it, looking at the sheriff's report that goes along with it and everything. It talked about the incident, talked about the report that came in. The report was that an individual advised that another individual was cussing, trying to start a fight, and mentioned that he was waiting for someone else to show up to physically fight him. That was the report that went into the sheriff's office. The after report, as far as the incident from the sheriff's office, When I was reading through it and everything, basically it was talking about deputies were dispatched to Fun Hill for disorderly. Reported that a former member of the fire department was refusing to leave and threatening violence. They arrived on the scene, made contact with the individual that was threatening violence in his vehicle parked in front of the station. The individual advised the sheriff's deputy when they arrived that, and this is the deputy, what the deputy wrote, advised me he had a pistol in the driver's side of his vehicle. The deputy removed the person from the vehicle and was speaking with him, took him to the rear of the vehicle, spoke with him and everything. Basically, the issue at hand was when the person resigned, he left a couple light equipment with specific instructions on who was to receive them. He found out that someone else, let's see, I took the individual to the rear of my patrol vehicle and confirmed his identity using Virginia DL. The subject stated that he used to run at Flint Hill Fire Department. When he resigned, he left a couple of light equipment with specific instruction on who was to receive them. He found out that someone else had received the equipment. He was upset by this and went to the fire department to request his property back or face criminal charges. The individual told the deputies he was polite, never threatened violence. The deputy reported the scene was calm, everyone was cooperating with us in our investigation. Let's see here. He spoke to the president of the fire company. He stated that he was going to have the gentleman serve trespass, to stay away from the property. The deputy said he spoke with several subjects on the scene, and they all confirmed that the entire altercation had only been verbal. The subject was advised to leave and was not allowed to come back on the property, and that he should expect to be served with trespassing paperwork soon. The gentleman was cooperative and stated he understood. He asked if he could do anything about the lights, and they informed him what he could do about that. So this is information that, as that came in for that situation, that is coming from the sheriff's office as far as what they have there. It was documented in that.
There's a sentence in there that you skipped over, specifically to the gun, that when Chris cleared it, he took it, walked away with it and cleared it, and then gave it back to him. I think it's relevant that he did have a gun.
Yes, it does say in here that the gentleman advised me he had a pistol in the driver's side of the door of his vehicle. He removed the individual from the vehicle, basically detained him, secured the firearm from the vehicle, and began speaking with several subjects who were outside of the vehicle. So it basically says the sergeant secured the firearm from the vehicle and began speaking with several subjects who were outside of the vehicle. That's what it states in reference to that. So that's what we got on that in reference to the incident there. So it's being brought to the Public Safety Committee. That's what information I have on it. I have not spoken to anyone that was involved in this incident there. Like I said, I got this on the 15th. That's what I know from the police report. And I can try to answer any questions that y'all have, or any directions or anything from that. That's just one item that's listed on the slide. I don't know if you want to talk about that before I go on to the others, or?
I guess my question is, what is your role in this? What role do we need to, is there a role that we need to take up as a?
That's what I just wrote down. What is the role of PSC manager, that she says?
I read it right off here, so rat me out, Gary.
So let's speak about, let's look at my role. In my role, yes, I do take this as serious concern and everything for public safety. But in my role, I'm the emergency services coordinator. That means I'm here to help them with whatever resources they have and everything. Company one, all the way through the 6 companies we have, they're their own entities. So I really don't have the right to walk into any fire department in this county and tell them that you're doing this wrong, you need to do this. and everything. I can walk in and say, hey, I got this, would you please mind doing this or working on this and everything? I don't have the authority to walk in any of these departments and say, you're doing this wrong, you need to start doing this and everything. In my role as emergency services coordinator. Now, I can offer suggestions, I can offer my opinion to the board as far as if the board was to ask me, hey, what do you think we should do, and things like that. But that's just my opinion. It's not something I can enforce because I don't have that authority. We don't have anything in the county ordinance or anything that gives me authority to do that, and plus they're their own entities. So really, what is my job is when these letters come in like this, is what I'm doing right now, is to bring it to the public safety board and see how the public safety board wants to proceed on these issues. And I can provide my input, but once again, with them being their own entities, if I walked in the door to say you need to do this, they can tell me where I need to go. And that's basically what, not only with me, that's with the board or anybody. So,
And the same holds true from the association level. You know, the companies have their own, their 501c3 corporations. They have their own structure within the company, and the association cannot levy or control or reprimand or anything like that according to our bylaws. The companies are on their own. You know,
So-
we as an association work at a higher level with the chiefs and come up with SOGs and SOPs, but in this particular case, it's an isolated incident. The police were there. If they didn't arrest anybody, then they didn't arrest anybody. If a barring order wasn't obtained, again, we have nothing to do with that. So from our level, we can't touch it.
Now, going back with me as emergency service coordinator, now, I'm gonna get off my soapbox right now, but what my responsibilities are and everything. But I am gonna say, when a letter like this comes into my office, it is very concerning. And I think we need to at least be asking the questions as far as, hey, what went on here? What is going on here? Is there something that we can do to help resolve these issues for the good of the public? Because things like this coming out does not look good in the public. It does not, even if this issue is isolated to one fire department, or basically, I guess you can say 2 fire departments, when people read this stuff out there or they're hearing about it, they're not going to look at it as being, I'll just put out there, Flint Hill Fire Department or somebody from Chester Gap Fire Department. They're going to look at it as a county whole, the volunteer system. I've seen other departments around here has been volunteer systems, and that's how they're going to look at it. They're not going to say, well, Flint Hill this, Chester Gap this, or anything. They're going to look at it as the county whole volunteer system. So I do take a lot of concerns with it. I think we need to kind of look at it, address it. We need to get the facts to know what is going on there. So we, as a public body, can come up with some recommendations of maybe this is what you need to do. This is what we're offering you. And then if we're laughed at, we're looked at, or whatever, as far as from the department to where they don't want to take us serious, then the other things that could come out is that, hey, recommendations could come to the board as far as the one things that we can do is you get yourself in gear, or we're going to start holding some of your money back until you show us that you want to do it. That's the only thing the county could ever do with these departments.
If I could interject, there's 5 separate incidents listed in this letter.
Yes, I'm talking about the first one now, and I got information on the others
Okay.
when I go to that. But I didn't know if y'all want to do the whole sheet, or?
Well, I mean, it's affecting, I believe this is affecting not only call response, call time, but the ability to respond at all.
Well, I'll go on to the others, and then that way you'll have everything. Because the others, I don't mind, I can read those right out. It's not a lot of, on those. On 18th of July 2018, there was a member that was, well, this gentleman that the letter came from, I was unable to gain access to the building to teach monthly MSAT continuing education class. The the door code had changed and I was not informed of the new code. Currently unable to respond to the station and access the apparatus to deliver care to the community. As of 14th of August, I did not receive any form of notification from the administrative or operational officers in reference to this combination change. I don't have anything to provide on that. I don't control their door codes. I don't know when they change them, so I'm not sure on that one. August the 4th, 2018, I was informed that quick response license issued by the Virginia OMS is removed from the utility. The EMS supplies also moved from the utility. I am unable to use the utility to respond to EMS calls and render care upon arrival on scene. I can speak to this one. There was a meeting held at this station with the Office of EMS, Heather Phillips. She was there meeting with them as far as some other complaints and everything that came in. She was there meeting with them, reference of that, and while she was there, I believe the membership then basically was talking back to the utility because one of the complaints was how the utility was being used to respond to calls to where it needed to be a EMS person on there. So a little, just for the board, for those of y'all that don't understand it, is if it's licensed as a first responder unit through the Office of EMS to be a first responder unit, when that unit goes out the door, it has to be an EMT on that unit for the Office of EMS to serve as a first responder. A member that is not a first responder or EMT or higher cannot take that unit out the door, period, without it being listed. It has to be listed as out of service, basically, for where if it's going for repair or anything, and equipment has to be removed. So basically what happened was Heather, in conjunction with the Flint Hill, talking to their officers there, they basically took their license that was licensed in that as a first responder, and she recommended to them to put it down as a reserve license. And basically what she explained to them as far as the reserve license, she went with them and showed them what pieces of equipment that they could take off of there and basically put on the shelf beside the unit. And in the reserve status is that if a non-EMT came in and needed to run that unit, as far as for manpower, on an EMS call, structure fire, whatever it may be, they could do it. They could mark it up and run. The only stipulation she gave them that day was that that utility was not, if there was no EMT on there, they were not to be the first arriving unit on the scene. They were to wait until a medic unit or BLS unit got there. And when they marked up, they had marked up as responding manpower only. So that's what came from her. Now, when they came in and there was an EMT, she told them that they could take the A bag and everything they took off and throw back on the unit and responded out as a first responder. So that's what that meeting took place. She took her license and put it down to that. Now, she's the EMS rep for their area or whatever. Whether that was the right thing to do, the wrong thing to do, that's on her. I'm not there to tell her how to do her job. She's the EMS rep for that area. So that's what she had worked with them on and everything as far as on that to help evidently with some of the complaints that were coming in and everything. Whether that was right for her to do, I'm not for sure, but that's what she done as the EMS rep on that. So that's where we stand at on that part.
That's number 3, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Number 1 was the gun. Number 2 was door code. The quick response vehicle was number 3. Number 4. As of 14th of August, the public safety concerns continue unaddressed by the Chiefs Committee. Then name the chair, executive committee, chair, or the leadership of the association, and the delegate. They seek input to address the issues by my office, the Public Safety Committee, Board of Supervisors, and to restore the regulations of Virginia OEMS within the department as stipulated in 12 VAC 5-31-330. All these above factors make it almost impossible for all the first responders to respond when the station receive a call for service without fear to personal safety, and the inability to render care effectively to the community is evident by the 4 EMS response over the past 3 months. And this was the one that says, should you wish to discuss the matters further, I can be contacted at, and then added email. like I say, it was signed by the EMS lieutenant at Flint Hill, but it didn't come directly from him. I got it from
Was not signed.
someone else, no, not only been signed.
It's attributed to EMS lieutenant.
Correct, yeah. But, so basically, I talked about the gun as far as what I know and what I found out on that.
Maybe we should hold for the discussion to the roundtable,
Okay,
if that's okay.
that's fine.
Okay. Does anyone have any further public comment?
I do.
Yes, sir.
I'm Frank Hope, I'm president of Flint Hill. The incident concerning these two individuals, I have talked with both of them, and the one who belongs to Flint Hill assured me that this altercation was over and done with, as well as a member from Chester Gap, the same from him. And I talked with our chief about it at length, and then I talked to 3 more of our board members, and we decided at that point that we figured these men were as good as their word, and that any further legal proceedings at that point were not necessary, and we just thought it could even cause more hard feelings. So that's why ultimately it was my decision not to go to the sheriff's office and obtain the stay-away paperwork on him. The July 18th for the MSAT, I wasn't aware of what the schedule is for MSAT. I'm not an EMT anymore. I had no idea. The door codes had to be changed because a previous member was coming into our building at some point, and stuff was getting changed on the computer, and nobody knew what was going on. And when we approached, when they were asked, could they please leave whatever their code was to access for EMS work and et cetera, we never got a response. So that's one of the reasons. Not long after that, an association meeting in Sperryville, I saw one of the members, Ms. Kendall, to be specific, and I know that she knows this gentleman very well, and I gave her the new door code. And as far as I know, the other night, the chief told me that he had seen this gentleman come to the station with Miss Kendall, but he didn't get out and come in the station. So as far as him coming there and making his presence known, or I had asked Miss Kendall, would she be kind enough to ask him what his intentions were as far as running or working with Company 4. And I never received any sort of response. And that's pretty much what happened with that. And we're going to have to change the door codes on our basement, where EMS has storage for their extra supplies and etc. The EMS captain told me several days ago that they're missing some materials. So it's an ongoing battle there. And I got a man coming back hopefully tomorrow or sometime toward the end of the week to review all of the tapes from the video. As far as the licensing or the step down for the licensing of the first responder unit, that was discussed at length by the membership, those who were running the calls, and they decided that it could be best used and more productive if they didn't have to be an EMT to get on board. Because at present time, somehow in all of this, it was reported to a lot of people that, oh, well, those guys only got one EMT. That's not true. There's 3 certified EMTs that are present. And the 4th is coming. He's working on his last couple items as far as ride along with another rescue squad to complete his EMT, so that'll make 4. And as I told somebody the other day, if people think it's so easy to recruit and get people, I go to the post office every day, and I have an opportunity to see people I haven't seen. I talk to them, and I'll let them know how desperate we are for members. And they ask me, well, does this take like a couple of weeks and I'd be an EMT? I said, no, the fact is, you gotta spend 4 months. Oh, no, I can't do that. So it's kind of bad in that response, but I will not give up. You know, I've been there with Flint Hill since 1964, and I've always tried to do my best to make sure I was doing the best for the good of the company, and I will continue to do so. There's another issue in here that somebody threw in about a portal radio. Received a call for service that was stolen. As far as I know, I asked the chief, yesterday? We never reported a radio stolen. We talked with Mr. Williams because he was doing a survey of all the radios that were issued to every company in the county. And he physically wanted to see those radios and match the serial numbers we had in our list as according to what he had. That was one that was missing, and we had asked repeatedly. As a matter of fact, upon discharge of a person, we had specifically asked him to turn all items belonging to the company for include radio, keys, uniform, and any other equipment issued or belonging to the company for. And we have not seen any. Finally, this radio came back. It was turned into the sheriff's office. And that's what I know about it.
One thing to add to that, because I did skip over that, because I put into that as the gun thing. So basically what it said on the letter here was on 13th of July, the portal radio user received a call for service identified as a stolen portal radio from the department was turned over to Rappahannock County Sheriff's Office. The portal radio was not stolen or removed as the report had indicated. The only means of notification by E911 due to unreliable cellular service in the area where I reside. So basically what happened there is when I done the inventory of the radios, that's when Flint Hill, Frankie had said that they had tried to get the radio back, no luck or anything and all that. So I spoke to Mr. Curry about it just a little bit as far as my intentions was. I'm not getting in the middle of this mess out at the department as far as the radio stuff and all like that. So with it being a county asset, what I've done, I went and talked to Mr. Jones, the investigator at the sheriff's office, and basically told him, and he has it in his report right here, turned the missing, requested an incident started for assistance to emergency service coordinator to see if he can recover county property. He had serial number and all that, and basically what he was going to do was call and see if he could get this and everything. But he does have in here that at the end when the radio was turned back in, because they have in here received a call from dispatch that a person was at the sheriff's office with radio that was reported missing. He proceeded to the sheriff's office, met an individual, and the radio was turned in. The individual said the radio was assigned to him by Company 4. The radio was in good condition, was in working order. He verified the serial number and confirmed that it was the correct radio, and he called me and the radio was returned to me. One thing that he did have in here was that he did advise in here that a certain individual came by the sheriff's office to talk about the missing radio. He had in here that he advised that he was trying to find the radio because it was missing from the inventory that was recently done, and he did advise that was not suspected of stealing the radio, gave the description of the radio and the serial number to the individual, and the individual said they would try to find it. So I want to point out in there, as far as stealing the radio, there was nothing ever pointed out to the sheriff's office or anything. It's in their report that the radio was not stolen, so as indicates in this letter. So that was from the report from the sheriff's office. Then on that.
If the radio had been assigned to somebody, I don't know why we had to involve the sheriff's office anyway to find the radio. That's,
Well, we couldn't do that. Yeah, after repeated attempts to get it back.
No, there was an email that said it was returned with the keys, and that was the other radio. And you
Didn't
did call
matter.
me a thief several times, so don't sit there and act like you didn't.
Well,
And you said it up until the 5th of August that I was a thief and I stole it, so don't even go there.
the
You're
letter
sitting
of
here
dismissal-
lying off your tail, you know it.
The letter of dismissal specifically adds.
And in the email, it said that it had been returned with the keys, and I have proof, so you just keep sitting there lying all you want.
So the one thing that I will point out as far as for the letter, for when I did the inventory, the one radio that was missing off of the inventory list that I was told by Fun Hill that they couldn't get back and stuff like that, matched, was the radio that got turned in by the EMS at the time. So that radio is back and everything. As it said in here, it was in good working order and everything. It did match that. Now, on their end, whether it was assigned to, who it was assigned to and everything, in my office, we don't get who's assigned to and stuff like that. So I couldn't tell you on that. Thing I can tell you is that it's back and everything and finished out the inventory. So what the gentleman has in here as far as was used because of E911 due to unreliable cell service and all, that could be correct.
It is correct?
Yeah, that can be, because a lot of places, a lot of members are using the 800 portables. As I've found that since I come into position, because they don't have the cell service to get it by them responding, or their pagers are not going off. So as far as the 800s being used for some members that are not hearing the calls and everything is correct in a lot of departments.
Did anybody else have anything they wanted to say while we're in public comment?
I got one other thing.
Yes, sir.
I'm chief of Flint Hill. Like Frank said, he did come to me and discuss this gun issue. I think it's already been resolved. These two individuals have several calls together and never been in any issue at these calls. So I think everything should be all right. I think it should be dropped.
Well, I feel differently since I'm the individual that supposedly had the gun and brandishing the gun, which is all a bunch of frickin' lies. The gun was in the car, was in the driver's door, never in the glove box, and never brandished. I never moved from the driver's seat. Our voices never got any louder than this. This was an issue between two people, and then the gallery in the fire station who created all of this mess and calling the sheriff's office.
Well, you rolled down there and you refused to leave after you were asked multiple times to get off the property.
I'm
Was-
So don't even
gonna
go
get out of
there.
Candace terms
Right.
of public comment. This is
Yeah,
not a
let's-
two-way
I
conversation.
was advised to
Please address your
leave,
comments to the board,
and I
and we
chose
will
not
not
to
go there.
leave, so that the sheriff's office, I wasn't fleeing from the sheriff's office. Once I was advised they were called, I wasn't going anywhere.
I think if we get out of public comment, that we can start making some headway about the appropriate way to proceed with this, and start looking at what people's roles are, if there are roles to be played in working through this. On that note, is there any more public comment?
Well, I'm glad I would meet with all of you folks at any time you want and give you the true facts. Frankie's got video possibly. The gun never left the driver's door where it had resided the whole time, where I told the sheriff it was, so.
Okay, very good. On that note, I'm going to close the public comment period. And we're going to move into roundtable discussion. I suggest we start with the bike trail because that was the first item that came up during public comment for roundtable discussion. Unless there was something else that preceded that someone wanted to discuss. send us some of the types of radios that we're gonna eventually end up getting? I think we haven't received them yet, correct? Because we don't wanna end up with something that's sort of outdated.
We placed an order, but
Okay.
we've not accepted delivery, and Harris has allowed us to wait to the very last minute to actually select the model, if there's a new model available then. They're going to have certain models available.
Right.
And we can decide whether we want to purchase those. Now, the grant that was submitted for that particular type of model radio for portables and mobiles. So if those are batched, and if I guess company 3 doesn't want them, then they go to a different company. If none of the companies want them, then I guess we're going to have a bunch of radios that won't be used. Harris is a very large corporation, and I can't imagine they'll be in business very long if the radios don't work or fall apart within a short period of time. But we're a consumer, and we can select whatever product we want, and county dollars are being invested for them. Then it'd be the county's interest to consider those things, whether you want to pay Harris price for a Harris radio or Motorola price for a Motorola radio. Ultimately, you just want it to work when the first responder pushes the button.
Didn't Harris, the successor of the GE brand, they used to be good radios.
There's been 2 providers through a number of years. They keep trading off who buys who to compete with Motorola. They're basically little computers.
And I mean, I know Motorola's probably like Cadillac.
Well, Motorola has many different types of radios as well.
When do you anticipate we would place that order? Is it dependent upon,
The last communication with the state for the grant was by the end of the calendar year, but they said we could request an extension. We probably will at this point with the current trajectory of the Harris.
They advised that we could ask for an extension, basically explaining this system is not going live yet, the delay in the system and everything. And they will look at the extension and either approve it or not approve the extension. If they don't approve it, then we have to execute the money before then. She said most likely with knowing that the system has been at a standstill due to things beyond our control, that we probably would get at least one extension. But the extension is only for, I believe, like 3 months.
okay.
It's not like a long period of time.
But,
So with the extension, the only other thing is with this grant, as far as we keep extending it out, it does affect me as far as with the office EMS right now, as far as applying for grants to get more radios. So in other words, if I was able to execute this grant a month ago and actually bought radios and had them in place, bought the mobiles and had them in place, I could apply for there's another EMS grant going on now to try to get other. Not saying that we would have got them or anything, but as long as we're sitting there and we haven't spent money that they awarded us on the last grant. The lady from Office EMS basically said she was 95% sure you wouldn't receive another grant while you're sitting there and haven't spent the money that you haven't had. Yeah.
I just speak for the record, I came from a system that was 100% Motorola, loved every minute of it. Product was great, service was great. We bought Harris. And so we will march forward. We will have a Harris system. And we will make the best out of the Harris system.
in terms of, was there anything that anyone else wanted to say about the Harris system? Then onto the bike trail, and what may or may not, what may be appropriate for us to bring forward as a committee in terms of issues to address with that project.
Well, I guess I'll start off is, for me is, in my position, I do have concerns or questions that I guess according to Mr. Delaney, as far as where they're at with the planning or the design stage and stuff like that, they really can't be answered, but I'm gonna throw them out there, is basically, is there an hours of operation on the trail? In other words, like it's closed at dusk and
No.
and all that? Are they looking at putting any lights there so that if they're not closing it at nighttime where people are going down there, hanging out, walking it and everything? There's nothing there to where,
I believe isn't that beyond the scope of work as it's defined?
I don't believe there'll be lighting considered. It could be no more than there's lighting on back roads around the county.
right. So we're gonna have this back there for the public to use and everything, and hopefully they wouldn't be back there using it in dark, not being able to see and everything. But that also comes in for me as far as looking at the sheriff's office, as far as coming in under public safety, as far as patrol and everything. How are they gonna patrol it? And it was pointed out that if they were gonna have gates at the end of it, how would the sheriff's office easily get around those to patrol it, to make sure we don't have people hanging out and everything on the trail doing things that shouldn't do? Because there are people in the area that would be behind their houses or close to their houses as far as what's going on there. And if it was to go through and they were to have the bike trail and everything, somewhere along that bike trail should be a call box or something to where if somebody's out there walking, jogging, or whatever, and someone's with them and they have some type of medical emergency, get bit by a snake, or a tree falls on them, whatever it may be, we all know the cell coverage in that area is not the greatest. So if you had a call box, they didn't have to run all the way back over to the schools or into the trail or whatever to try to make a call or anything. So for me, from the Public Safety Committee, those are a couple areas that will be of concern to me.
Did you have anything further?
Unfortunately, almost every one of those questions can't even be addressed until we get to the design phase, and we can't get to the design phase until we accept the grant and get the deep.
I find it highly unlikely that lighting will be provided.
I believe it's beyond the scope of work for that kind of project, so if
It's
it's
not
not paid for.
contemplated. My best understanding, there will be no limitation to the hours of operation.
No, a segment of it's gonna be closed during the school day, but
The
nothing
section
at
that
night.
goes, the spur that goes back to the elementary school.
But it's gonna be severely limited to hours of operation because there's no place to park.
That's a functional issue. But people could be on it, and first responders would have to get to it potentially any hour of the day.
It would
Without
last
lighting.
longer for you to get a place to park, that's one thing, the maintenance costs would be down.
I think a first responder will find somewhere to park, I'm sure. Bollards, I think, is an important topic to discuss and to make sure that those are keyed in a way that our medic units and our deputies can get in there if they need to.
It needs to be a swinging gate like they do at some of these other.
Well, I don't think it'll be a gate, I think it'll be bollards to restrict vehicular traffic, as I've seen in other locations. So bikes and pedestrians can pass, but a car can't.
So
So
then that means the sheriff's department will have emergency or usually folks get down there.
the bollard would be removable with padlock.
And the ice and snow.
Yes, people want to have their cross-country skis back there, they probably do.
I think the access relates back to the patrol issue, what kind of patrolling is appropriate. I also think that, one of the proposed uses of the trail is as a school safety route, and I certainly think that, reviewing that plan or at least looking at that plan and offering feedback might be something that we could do as a body as well.
So we're looking at access and hours of operation and patrol and limitations, all of the above.
As far as call boxes, I don't know if they've been contemplated or this group thinks that they're appropriate. We've got a whole lot of areas in the county that you could argue should have a call box because you don't have good cell coverage. This is just another area. So I don't think we're recommending call boxes all over the county.
I was recommending them for this because it's supposed to be a biking trail, jogging trail,
ADA
physical fitness
compliant.
trail.
Then it's a county project.
Like that.
Yeah, so one could possibly be installed, it might be able to use cell technology with a higher gain antenna or something, I don't know.
Are there any other concerns for safety in regards to the plan in general?
No, I think, I mean, those are large topics, but I think we'll be hearing from the sheriff the next couple of days, whether there's more of it's going to be needed. And those certainly, whether it's going to be lighting and access, any type of control limitations, call boxes for emergencies, that's going to take quite a bit of. And what resources will the sheriff's department need to accomplish this?
Well, I know we keep talking about the sheriff's office too, but I think the fire and rescue,
Well, they're going to be able to get back here as well.
especially Chief Speaker, I mean, it's in her purview area as far as having access to get back there if someone wrecks their bike or
My kids
Gets
did
bitten
it, so
by a
I'll just say a
snake or-
regular skateboard.
if, depending on what they have at the end of it to keep regular vehicle traffic from going down there.
Right.
I think it's very important for them to hear from either public safety board or the first responders as far as what they're gonna put there, how it would affect their response. I mean, you have a medic unit responding down here and they have something in place that the medic unit won't fit in.
Path would be 10 feet wide, maybe.
Be 10-foot wide, but the type of construction to get from like Rock Mills Road over onto the county-owned property, if that's gonna be one of those suspended walkway type thing, like it.
Well, I'm referring to also, if it might be 10 feet wide, but at the entrance to where we have the
Oh, right, there'll be
gates or
bollards in
whatever.
place, so it'd
Yeah,
have to be
how wide would they be for them to,
narrow
get
enough so a
through.
car can get through, right, to have some sort of keyed access and be coordinated, and there's a lot to work out for that.
Key or bolt cutters.
Universal.
I think that these are concerns that we can bring to that September 5th meeting. I certainly urge people, if they have concerns in terms of the project or county priorities, to attend that meeting themselves. But as a member of this body, I feel like those are things we need to bring up at the September 5th meeting and offer to bring back for review here in this committee, if that's what the board desires to do.
well, everything we brought up is basically like you said, it's, our concerns can't be answered now, it's answered more the further you get into the design part, as far as these concerns.
So I would say that you need to focus, at this point in time, you need to focus on items that you don't think could be mitigated through design. Because they would be a no-go on whether it's possible or plausible. If things can be mitigated through design, like bollards that can open and things like that, that's a design issue and it's just implementation and follow through. But if there are safety reasons why they can't be addressed, those are the things that are critical to
Right.
really hammer now.
That intersection.
So, have VDOT or engineering people explain how that's gonna be safe or why it's gonna be safe.
I think that we should try and reach out to them, see if we can, get some information, some input from them before the September 5th meeting, or back September 5th meeting. If that's possible at all.
Did they do any sort of study?
Pedestrian crossings, crossroads all the time, so there are standards, whether.
We're funneling them this time. Well, they already
It
have,
happens every day in every town almost.
and they already have the traffic counts for Rock Mills, so that, that's a factor. To me, the line of sight was the only thing, because when you're coming onto Rock Mills, you're actually going up and then go down, so.
Yeah, I think the crossing would be near the intersection.
Right. But
Just
that
so
makes
the
it worse.
pedestrian has a line of sight to the approaching vehicles that are turning, but that's all left to design.
think that we do have basically two kinds of things, the ones that need to be brought up as questions as to whether they even exist, like lighting, or, if that's a go, no-go, as you said, or bring our concerns up in terms of items that need to be mitigated by design.
Yeah, I tend to think that our citizens are smart enough to know when it's dark and when it's not dark, and we have roads and hiking trails all over the place that they know whether they want to be out on these areas or not. We're not the kind of county that wants to light everything up. We're the kind of county that wants to not light everything up.
And we've never actually made an official statement on that, that's just what some people say. Personally, I like light because it pays.
Words spoken by an electric.
It pays. I think we really ought to be able to get some kind of information from NEDA before the September 5th meeting about site distance and traffic count in that area.
Do you have a point of contact, Gary, that